our Honorable Pro-VC Ma'am, Dr. Professor Batmakali Banerjee, for chairing this webinar, national level webinar on the day of International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. Ma'am, I welcome you, ma'am, for this webinar. And also I welcome Professor Dr. Pitikol, the President, Pediatric and Neonatal Nursing Forum India, and also former Director IGNO, New Delhi. Ma'am, it is very proud to have you here for this webinar, ma'am. I welcome you, ma'am. And also I welcome Dr. Deepika Kakka, Associate Professor from College of Nursing, AIIMS, New Delhi. Already she is a very eminent person and speaker, and we are very happy to have you here. Dr. Deepika, I welcome you. I welcome Professor Dr. Rajesh Nayak, Director, IBAS, Amity University, Haryana, and always he is a supportive person, and whatever the event we conduct, he always come forward and to support us. And thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
I welcome Dr.
Thank you so much.
Smriti Arora, Faculty, Lok Nayak Hospital, New Delhi. I welcome you for this wonderful webinar. And also, I welcome Professor Smriti Arora, Professor, Amity College of Nursing, Amity University, Haryana, and moderating this webinar. And she is an eminent speaker and highly knowledgeable. And I welcome each and everyone for this national level webinar. I welcome you all. And we know yesterday, June 26th, every year it is observed as International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. To stimulate the sense of responsibility among people around the world, especially youngsters and teenagers. So it is a proud moment that Amity University, Haryana, India's #1 leading private university, is organizing this webinar along with Pediatric and Neonatal Forum India on this International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. So it is a very proud moment. The theme of this year is like better knowledge for better care. So this emphasizes the need to improve the understanding of the world's drug problem and how better knowledge will foster the greater international cooperation for country, its impact on health, governance, and security. So with this small introduction, I hand over the session to the speakers, and I feel very proud being a principal, Amity College of Nursing, to co-host this webinar. Thank you so much, and I hand over the session to Professor Smriti to continue. Thank you. Can you unmute?
Thank you so much, ma'am. A very good evening to all of you. I serve Dr. Smriti Arora, Professor Akon, moderator for today's session. Welcome each one of you. Today, we all have gathered here on this platform to celebrate International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. The theme for this year is Better Knowledge for Better Care. Celebrating an International Day provides us an opportunity to educate the public on issues of concern. Drug abuse has now become one of the global problems, which leads to devastating consequences on individuals, families, and nations. This problem needs to be nipped in bud. Men, women, boys, and girls all are equally affected. As parents, teachers, and healthcare professionals, it is our responsibility to keep them safe and assess them to make correct choices and act responsibly. As ma'am already mentioned, that today's webinar is being jointly organized by Pediatric and Neonatal Nurses Forum, India, and Amity College of Nursing, Amity University, Haryana. Now it's my utmost pleasure to invite Professor Dr. Pitikol, President of PNNFI, currently working as Principal School of Health Sciences, IGNO, and former Director, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Ma'am has vast professional experience of over 37 years at Nursing Education Department, Sher-e-Kashmir Institute of Medical Sciences, Srinagar, Kashmir, and IGNO. Ma'am is doctorate from Jamia Millia Islamia, did MSc in Pediatric Nursing from College of Nursing RK, Delhi University, MA in Public Administration from Punjab University, and BSc Nursing from PGI Chandigarh. Ma'am is recipient of prestigious Presidential National Florence Nightingale Award in 2017. She is a source of inspiration to many of us. Ma'am has functioned as chairperson, guest of honor, and resource person at various scientific and plenary sessions for around 130 national and international conferences, workshops, seminars, and panel discussions. Ma'am has gained fellowships from WHO for workshop on integrated management of childhood illness at Myanmar, and also from NNF and UNICEF from workshop on facility-based newborn care. Ma'am has participated in various paper presentations in various international conferences at Southampton University, UK, Malaysia, New York, Shanghai, and many more. Ma'am is constantly involved in planning, development, and coordination of various programs like PhD nursing, post-basic nursing, diploma program in critical care nursing, certificate in newborn and infant nursing, certificate in MCH nursing, and various other paramedical courses. Ma'am has also worked as public health consultant at SIT New Delhi British ODA project. More than 10 scholars have received PhD degree under her guidance, and currently Ma'am is guiding 7 more. Ma'am is examiner and paper setter for PhD, postgraduate, and undergraduate nursing programs at various universities. She is member of various academic councils and committees of IGNOU, selection committees for principals, and many inspection teams. She is expert member for adoption and development of regulations, statutes, and ordinances for undergraduate nursing program. Ma'am is expert member for evaluating research proposals and reports from various agencies like ICMR. She is also a technical advisory committee member for quality assurance in training of ANMs at Answers Hyderabad. She is a member of more than 25 professional bodies. Some of them are TNI, NNF, IAP, NRSI, and many more. She is the editorial board member, advisory member of many prestigious journals, and has more than 40 research publications to her credit related to child health, HIV/AIDS, and quality assurance. Ma'am has authored around 10 chapters in books related to neonatal nursing, pediatric nursing, and nursing research, and also reviewed 5 books. Thank you. Looking forward to hear to you, ma'am.
Oh, thank you for so much of elaborated introduction. I don't think this much of is required at this forum. I thank you very much, and I think I thank you for giving me opportunity to be here today. And at the outset, on behalf of Executive Committee of Pediatric and Neonatal Forum in Nursing Forum India, I take it my privilege to express my immense gratitude to our whole administration of MET University in general, and in specific, Dr. Banerjee, a very vibrant and dynamic leader, and Dr. Salvi, the Principal College of Nursing, MET University, Smriti Arora, in particular, all the 3, who facilitated this joint venture for organizing this workshop, because this was the need of the day. You know, this topic which we are going to discuss here, we have experts here of drug who will be discussing epidemiology of drug abuse and all, but I just feel that this topic is of so much of concern, not to an individual, but to the world, to the nations, to the country, to the state, to the community, to the family, and also to the parents and the individuals, the peer groups in particular, because this has been really a serious menace in the country. Though many welfare programs and projects have been initiated at the UN level and at the UN Organization Office, this drug and crime office level, so many things, and also in India, many, but still it continues to be a menace, and it will very badly affect not only the security, but the development of the nation, because in our nation, we have most of the people who are in the age group of adolescence, and also which will in turn also affect the economy of the country if it is not taken care of at this moment right now. And I feel the pediatric nurses, the mental health nurses, and also all the nursing professionals in general and all these specialist nursing professionals in particular can help and utilize and also use their potential, because I think the nursing professionals can only make the dent if we have to address such problems, because the nursing work over and over 24 hours with the patients, with the communities, with the families, and they are in a better advantage to help the governments, to help the nation to get protected and uh, get somehow relief from this, which is really affecting badly to the country. So before I give some few more remarks about the opening remarks about this webinar, I would just like to talk about what our association is about. The Pediatric and Neonatal Nurses Forum India, we have been thinking about it quite a few years back, but it was only in just I think 2016, between 2016 and 2018, we have taken very serious thinking and discussions and deliberations about it. And then it was only in 2018 we could register it, the society, in the Registrar Society, as per the Registrar Society. And we were able to organize a national level, first national level work conference, which was on exploring advancement and innovation in pediatric and neonatal care. That was really a very successful uh, conference which we organized. And I think I must not forget to name here the Professor Rawat, who is the principal this University College of Nursing, Faridkot. He has taken his proactive activities in order in registering the society. So this is a brief about this, and this was basically conceived for supporting. We cannot create the knowledges and skills, because knowledge is, I think knowledge is a very vague term nowadays. So we have just thought of strengthening and supporting the knowledge and skill, and also the proficiency, improving the proficiency of nursing professionals, pediatric and neonatal nursing professionals, to provide better patient care. And the adolescent care is one of the thrust area of the objective of this society. We also focus on research. We have also thought of, we have not yet done much about it, but we have thought of providing a very viable platform for even helping in policy changes, if we will be, if we really work together, and if we really are able to do that. But the hunch is there. The hunch has to be there, whether we achieve it or not, but the hunch has to be there, because the time has come when nurses have to effect the change, not only at the local levels or a college level. And there are certain shortcomings with which are inherent in maybe in us as a professional, but we have so much of potential. If you go individually to every nursing professional, we have so much of potential to prove ourselves. And you see during this corona period how much nurses are struggling, and how much responsibility each one of them are shouldering, and then that needs to be appreciated, and they have to be given due care. And it is only unless and until we raise our voices at this point of time, I think nobody is going to listen to us, and nobody is going to hear us. Having said that, I will just say that as I was going through the reports, I found that there were 269 million people who were using the drugs all over the world. And it was supposed to be 30% increase in 30% increase in only 8 years, from 2009 to 2018. This is such a sad affair. And almost 3.3 million people die with this drug related problems. And at present, there are 35.5 million people who are suffering with drug disorders, drug use disorders. So what is sad state of affair? We are not able to do it. Just in 1987, when this international day was, resolution was passed to celebrate this international day. Not much has been done, but much more needs to be done. But having said that, the children, really children are the very worst, I should use this word, worst victims and vulnerable to this very sad menace. Why? Not only because of the poverty, because of the negligence, because of the broken family, or because of the starvation, because of wars, because of exploitation, because of domestic violence, because of the parental negligence, because of illiteracy. Not only because of that, but more so because of the advent of modern information technology, which has also led to this menace, because they get more and more exposed to what others do. And then the illiteracy is not the only factor. The literacy also, the advancement also has been a factor. And it has been found that 4.2 million children are using the drugs. 4.2 million is not a very small number. And it has also been estimated that about 10% of 8th standard children are using the drugs. About 30% of 9th standard are using the drugs, and about 40% of 10th standard are using the drugs. So we can imagine that how much responsibility of all of us as a professionals have to shoulder for reducing this menace, even though it will take a lot of time for eliminating. But for we have to reduce, promote the health, and we have to use the preventive strategies and alternative strategies. We at nursing levels also can think of many alternative strategies, because we have the accessibility to the people. Because the knowledge has now become a relative term. I have been observing during this corona pandemic, lot of information is being influxed. So much of information from media, from the people, from the organizations, the government. But see the impact of the just knowledge. It's not that much, because we need to do something of changing the attitudes, which we say as behavior change communication. Behavior change communication has to be, knowledge is not going to give any, because everybody, even if you see to the family, your own family members, even if they read paper, they read newspaper, they read periodicals, they read WhatsApp, they read everything, they see the TV. But the knowledge, abundant knowledge is there. But what we do, we practice everything what is being expected of us? No, we don't practice. The reason would have not been, then the result would have not been what is the sad state of affairs, mainly in Delhi only, not to talk about the other states. So something else has to be done, which has to have the change in behavior and the attitude of the people. That is why these international days are being celebrated. These international days are being celebrated in order to create the awareness regarding the issues of concern. It's not only just for the sake of celebrating them. They are created. There is a motto, because UN takes it as an advocacy tool. So there is something which needs to be done. The concerns need to be addressed. And then the concerns cannot be addressed only individually. We have to have...
Excuse me, ma'am, can I please interrupt you?
Yes.
Ma'am, can you please do a little faster, because we have a time limit?
Just 1 minute. Just 1 minute. Just one. I will just finish 1 minute. So I was talking that these days are being celebrated just to create awareness, not only create the awareness, and also the mobilization of political will, and also the providing the resources. We may talk and talk, unless and until we provide resources, nothing is going to happen. So you have to, as nursing persons, you have to mobilize the political will. And lastly, I would say that, as has been very rightly said, that we have to jointly shoulder the responsibility, and we have to build the solutions. We have to build the resolutions and solutions, and we don't have to talk. And that has to be based on the facts, and we have to shoulder the responsibility jointly. And then we have also to provide solidarity to those people who are victimized. With the final word I can send, I would request Dr. Simriti Arora, who has taken a very good initiative of collaboration between the two, one on professional organization and then one organization, a university, to conduct this webinar. I would request you to make the highlights of the webinar so that we can have some online pamphlet prepared out of what has been deliberated, so that can also serve as some outcome of this workshop. I will also like to help you in editing that. So the end result of this seminar, this webinar should be that. So thank you very, very much once again for
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable suggestions and your experiences which you have shared with us. We'll definitely try to make some pamphlet and distribute it to the wider audience. Moving forward, now I would like to heartily welcome our Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor, Madam Professor Dr. Padmakali Banerjee. Madam is also Dean Academics, Professor in Management and Psychology at Amity University, Haryana. Ma'am is a thought leader, a public speaker, and a life coach. A doctorate from University of Delhi, she is the fellow of prestigious Somatic Ink Block Society, FSIS US. She has over 26 years of experience in research, teaching, consulting, training, and academic administration. Her current research interests include optimism and well-being, curriculum design, and leadership studies. A close associate of corporate functionaries, her forte relates to mentoring, management consulting, and leadership development extending to an array of industries like IT, oil, FMCG, and hospitality. She heads Center for Brick Studies, a center for excellence, practice, research, and outreach. As the Pro Vice Chancellor, Ma'am has been involved in strategic planning and leads the development and implementation of the university's academic processes. She spearheaded many innovative initiatives, including the introduction of a flexible credit system, industry academic integration, and internationalization. She pioneered the skill development program at the university. Her concepts and contributions on the Indian skill development ecosystem have been widely recognized and acclaimed on both national and international platforms. She is the recipient of prestigious 2018 Greenville Leadership Award from USGBCI for her contribution towards environment. She has received Award of Excellence from INSPA, the prestigious Indian School Psychology Association, for her contribution in the promotion of school psychology in 2019. She is a member of editorial board of the SIS Journal of Projective Psychology and Mental Health. Her book, The Power of Positivity, Optimism, and the Seventh Sense, published by Sage, is a popular choice globally. Her research model, Paroma, has been registered as a trademark for imparting counseling, education, and training schedule amongst the organizations and general public to improve life and abilities. She has developed a psychometric test, Optimism Index, a tool to measure optimism quotient popularly used by the corporates. In her professional career, she has exhibited a passion for entrepreneurship by empowering youth and developing leaders in different walks of life. Her dream is to transform the world into a happier place to live in by instilling hope and optimism in today's youth. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Smriti. And we have had such a great panel that I'm very happy to be with all of you. And specifically, I can see the number of attendees going up like this. So, exponentially from the time we started at 4:05, I can see how the numbers have doubled and tripled. So it itself has added to the kind of power that today's session is going to be. So first of all, I welcome each one of you on behalf, and we are very happy at Amity University, Haryana to co-host such an important event. Like 26th of June, we all know, like Dr. Kaul, who herself is so much a great leader in the field of nursing and eminent personality, has already spoken about, how 1987, these resolutions were passed, and then onwards, how international days are celebrated. At Amity, let me tell you, the College of Nursing is one of the premier college of nursing in the entire Northern India. So I feel very happy that, our team consisting of my principal, Dr. Tamil Selvi, who herself is a great researcher, and Dr. Arora, Smriti Arora, they have decided, and when this opportunity came to me, I almost jumped up I'll give you two reasons for it. One, very recently, 2 years back, one of my PhD scholars who has worked on substance abuse, and we have used a behavioral model to help people who are already under addiction. For de-addiction purposes, it has been used, and at present, my research scholar, she is already now a doctorate and is working in the NHS in United Kingdom, and she is contributing a lot to help the people who are suffering from drug abuse. The second issue is, I must tell you that Amity University, Haryana, which is a very research and innovation driven university, we have several centers of excellence where we focus on, improving the way of life of our students through experiential learning. We have Amity Center for Innovation in Education. So different schools from the universities participating in taking up the most important issues and challenges. So I think these two things were so important on my mind that I thought that we must talk about it. And when you talk about, this whole thing of drug, I will want to take you to not only the pandemic times, because we are going through a very unprecedented times of our entire decade, I must say, because none of us possibly here were there at the time of Spanish flu. So we do not know, but the kind of impact the pandemic has had in our lives, we have seen the role of technology also into it. So I have a certain questions, maybe we will be answering it towards in our discussion, that how are you going to use, or through the use of technology, can we give a solution to reduce this drug abuse, this illicit trafficking, through use of proper artificial intelligence, automation? How are we able to curb that? The second aspect, which is very critical in this sphere, is about, behavior therapies. So for that, I must tell you, along with me, I have my director from Amity, Dr. Rajesh Nair. He is the director of the Department of Psychology, IBAS, we call it at Amity University, Haryana. So there needs to be a collective force of people from government, from policymakers, to psychologists, to nursing community, to doctors, to psychiatrists, and the community at large, to focus on the problem and give a solution. And if you look at the theme, it's talking about better knowledge for better care. What does that mean? If you do not create an awareness, especially among the students, who are right now going to possibly going to study at the universities or higher level institutions, and when they go out into the practicing field, they would be the people, and if they're empowered, they can take care of the problems. So that is one area. The second area, in India, we boast about India being a very, a youthful nation, that if you look at the average age of youth, India, people are below, a large number of almost 40% of our Indian population will be below 30. So keeping that in mind, we have bigger challenges. From the data that Dr. Kaul suggested, it is mind-boggling. And if we have conversion of more students who enter into grade 8 or 9, and they get into this kind of a problem, then it is going to be a huge problem in front of us. So we have to look at from where it comes. So not only we need to understand what these drugs are all about, whether it is a party drug or any of this, cannabis or you name it, any of those drugs, and how dangerous and the kind of impact it has. Second aspect is also there, where now common medications like aspirin, even popping pills, that is also becoming a very big problem in the medical fraternity. There are too much of self medication that people are doing. So that is another area which also comes under the drug abuse that we need to be careful about. Finally, because we are talking to maximum community would be, I think, nursing community today. Most of you would be nursing and some from public health and psychology. My message to you is, you have done great job. Like you have been the fighters, you've been like the fighter pilots. So, during the Corona times, we have seen with how much of resilience that the nurses fought, whether it started, whether there have been hundreds of examples from Pune to Kerala, and I've seen the kind of resilience they already have. So if with those kind of resilience we move forward, and we have a very clear-cut idea that how do you reduce it. Otherwise, we will come, talk in a webinar and go away. So personally, I would want that Amity University, Haryana would take it up as one of the areas of more further research. We at university take up a lot of research projects which are funded by government and by the industry, and we can focus in that area where we can have a sentient group of people coming both from industry, pharmaceuticals, nursing community, doctors, public health, and that is possible in India, and psychologists. So there is a lot of need for awareness. So you need to get into the schools. You need to connect to the educators, the school, K-12 schools. I mean, in this last, 3 months, I have spent talking to about 36 school principals, and among many other things, we are talking about among cyber addiction and other addiction, drug abuse itself is a very big problem in front of us because it's a big industry. If you look at, there is a lot of money involved. So there needs to be a very clear-cut roadmap that how are you going to curb. And the best way that we can make a change is you cannot change the country. You cannot change the state. You cannot change your community, but you can make a change in your household and the people around you. So, I mean, some of the difference that you can do is in our own institutions. If we create more awareness, I think we will be able to curb this problem. And with that, I'm so pleased that we have Dr. Deepika. She is a great academic, as well as another Dr. Arora is there, Sumiti Arora. So, and to each one of you, to the participants who are here, I must congratulate you because you are using this time to develop your own self, so which is itself commendable. So beyond the learning that you're going to have, you're also going to be in a very mindfulness situation. So it will reduce your level of stress that each and every individual is undergoing. So best wishes, and I'm really looking forward for a way ahead. We will possibly come out with a white paper and we'll plan a good project around this area. And how do we bring in that change, mindset change among the youth? That is my major concern. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable suggestions. And I'm sure we will try to do some more research and to find out some solutions to this problem, along with collaborations with different partners. Now, moving forward, it's my pleasure to invite Professor and Director of Amity Institute of Behavior and Allied Sciences, Dr. Rajesh Nair. Sir is doctorate in health psychology and has also received public health training at Institute of Public Health and Primary Care, University of Cambridge, UK, supported by PHFI UKC Wellcome Trust Capacity Building Program. Sir has undergone a short intensive fellowship program on HIV public health and program delivery at Sydney Medical School, University of Sydney under Australian Leadership Award Fellowship. He has earned masters with specialization in clinical and abnormal psychology, psychological testing, and postgraduate qualifications in health and family welfare, human resource management, labor laws, and personal management. Sir has more than 21 years of experience in public health practice, research, teaching, and training. His work experience is mainly in program management, monitoring and evaluation, teaching social and behavioral sciences, psychosocial and operational researches, developing and implementation of focused interventions among most at-risk groups under National AIDS Control Program. Sir has extensively worked as national consultant to provide technical support by UNDP at National AIDS Control Organization, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, and at state AIDS control societies in various capacities under NACP 2 and 3. Sir has worked with street children, out-of-school youth, school-going children on life skills education program. At Institute for Reproductive Health, Georgetown University, Washington, D.C.'s India Country Office, he provided program management support for implementation and scale-up of fertility awareness-based methods under RCH program supported by USAID in the priority states of Uttar Pradesh and Jharkhand. He has also worked as Indian Institute of Public Health, Gandhinagar University, and was state lead for STEPS project at Gujarat. He has remained PI and co-PI for several research projects. Dr. Rajesh has over 24 publications in the area of public health and health psychology in peer-reviewed indexed national and international journals. His main area of interest are mental health, psychological counseling, reproductive health, STIs, HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, children and adolescent health, disaster management, and public health. The stage is all yours, sir, now.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Dr. Smriti. Respected Dr. Padma Kali ma'am, Honorable PVC, MIT University, Haryana. Respected ma'am, Dr. Priti Kaul, President of PNNFI and former Director of IGNO. Respected Dr. Tamil Selvi ma'am, who is a fellow director at MIT Institute of Nursing. Thank you so much for providing me this opportunity to address all dear participants on this very important topic, that is social determinants of substance use by children and adolescents. Always we talk about risk factors, we talk about symptoms. Hardly there is a research which talk about the social determinants, which are probably the fundamental causal factor, maybe the causes of substance abuse. So I will take you through the journey of substance abuse, specifically among children and adolescents. This is the brief outline of my presentation. I'll be talking about the salient features of substance use in India. I'll be briefly touching upon the prevalence of substance use in India, because there is another session which will be talking about in detail about substance abuse. But just to facilitate my session, I thought I'll present few slides on it. I'll be talking about social determinants of health and substance abuse among children and adolescents, and will present social determinants of health rainbow model, which would provide some initial thoughts of addressing this very issue. Then we will look at the protective factors and risk factors of substance abuse, and finally the way forward to address substance abuse in India. And like my previous speakers have mentioned, the issue of substance abuse is ever increasing internationally and also in India. So if you look at this slide, it talks about that there are large number of people, including children and adolescents, who use psychoactive substances internationally, but of course in India. However, there is a wide variation of prevalence across states, across union territories, from milder substances such as tobacco and alcohol, which is commonly used as substance used by the age group between 10 to 14 years in India. The onset of substance use is reportedly as early as 10 years of age. And you can understand at that tender age, if the children are going to use substances of different types, how much it will affect their life in coming years. Cannabis, opioids are next commonly available substances. Then we have sedatives, inhalants, cocaine, amphetamines, hallucinogens, which are also used in sizable population of India. Look at this slide, which is from Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment of year 2019, which talks about the current prevalence of alcohol use. And you see, which is widely available, and during this even COVID-19 era, when after the lockdown or during the lockdown, when it was initiated, the huge lines were there, which also kind of disrespectful of maintaining the social distancing. So look at the data of children aging between 10 to 17 years. So roughly in India, somewhere around 16 crores of people, they use alcohol, right? And within that, children of about some 10 to 17 years, about more than 1%, they use alcohol on different occasions. Look at the slide of opioid use in India, which is generally available in the form of heroin, in terms of pharma opioid. Madam talked about pharmaceutical drug use as painkillers, as sedatives, etc. So look at these data of children aging between 10 to 17 years, which use the different types of opioid-based substances. So in India, roughly about 2.1 crore of population uses opioid-based substances. Cannabis, which are generally available, easily available in the form of bhang, in the form of ganja, in the form of charas, is largely used by a population which tunes to be somewhere around 3.1 crores. This is the Government of India's data, which says that a sizable chunk of children aged between 10 to 17 years use substance abuse. Look at the inhalants. And now this is a very disturbing data. You can see initiation of substance abuse by children at very early age, beginning from inhalants of different types, and then they become habituated, and then they move on to different other substance use. So roughly about somewhere around 77 lakh of population which uses different types of inhalants. More specifically, easily available whiteners, if you may have seen on offices. So they use it for, or nail polishes, etc., for intoxication. Now, the data says that the extent of substance use is higher among young people as compared to older people. Peak levels of drug use are seen among those in the age group of 18 to 25 years. Now, why I'm saying so is because if you look at the methodology, how this data is collected, the extent of data use among young people is based on their past year or past month prevalence, which means they are either current users or they have used it recently, as compared to the older population, which means that they may have used this as during their lifetime, and this shows the exposure. However, it peaks majority of time in the age group of 18 to 25 at that young age, and it starts with children and it goes up to the adolescents age group. This last slide, which I am reporting, like what Professor P.T. Kaul ma'am has also mentioned, the UNODC data, which talks about the annual prevalence of cannabis used among general population aged between 16 to 64 and among the students aged between 15 to 16 years. That means somewhere around 8 to 10 standards in any school. And if you look at the data of students in blue color, this is more than the pink color data, which belongs to general population aged between 15 to 64 years. So this shows that the recent use of these cannabis are more prevalent among students as compared to the older population. And you know about the tobacco use. There are several studies. Recently, Global Youth Tobacco Survey in 2015-16 has told us that though the smoking tobacco is going down, but chewing tobacco is going up. And the age of initiation of chewing tobacco somewhere comes around 10 years of age. It means there is something in the surrounding of those children that at early that age, children are initiating the use of tobacco products. And as you know, these are freely available, accessible products available all across where we live in our neighborhoods, around the schools and other academic institutions. And almost 90% of cancer-related diseases are linked with tobacco use. Now, the topic, precisely what I wanted to mention, that social determinants of health are those important factors which are responsible in terms of causing these abuses to take place. Now, what are these? As it is mentioned that health starts from our homes, schools, the workplaces, the neighborhoods, communities, where actually we live, where people are born, grow, live, educate, age, including the health systems, is part of social determinants of health. And likewise, the substance abuse is very much one risky behavior, which is also part of this ecosystem. I want to give you an example. Like in case of effective case management, which requires management of clinical symptoms, immediate those clinical problems, and then we look at the factors which are underlying either the risk factors which are directly causal, having causal relationship with the condition, or maybe those conditions which helps in terms of occurrence of these risky behaviors, such as substance abuse. Now, what are these basically? Look at this rainbow slide. It talks about that there are certain permanent factors such as age, sex, genetic factors, which cannot be changed. However, the environment, such as which is immediate and the beyond, such as individual lifestyle factors, social and community networks, play a major role in terms of shaping our risky behaviors. Then the education, economy, culture, environment where we live in, the condition or status of being employed or unemployed influence the behavior of substance abuse. Because at very young age, children then get involved in selling of these substances if they do not get that kind of environment, housing, water, sanitation. All these factors are responsible in terms of determining the kind of health we may have. We can see this in terms of different comparisons of health disparities data. This very slide talks about the social determinants and risk factors, the determinants which I have just talked about in terms of macro level, which influences such as poverty, homelessness, child labor, lack of access to healthcare services. Social environment, if my environment at childhood has remained antisocial, poor, or maybe certain other challenges if were like conflicts, wars, etc., then there are more chances I will get indulged into substance abuse, because that is what we generally see in the places. You must be reading the reports, what is happening in the places like Afghanistan, or earlier it happened in Myanmar or maybe Sri Lanka, where such difficult conflict conditions have resulted into the increase of substance abuse. So these are the social determinants I'm talking about: income and resources, social environment, physical environment, family influence, which is the immediate after the heredity factors, lack of involvement of parents, monitoring harsh abusive behaviors, stressful, chaotic environment, school influences. If my school is not able to curtail those places where these kind of drugs are getting sold, then nobody is able to control the kind of use of these. Peer influence, antisocial peers, exposure to alcohol is something which starts in at very early age. There are other personal characteristics such as genetic susceptibilities, mental health, personality trait. Like certain kids could be risk-taking, having risk-taking behaviors. So like ma'am talked about behavior change communication or models which can prevent children from getting into these kind of substance use behaviors. And also neurological, it impacts the neurological development, it impacts the condition of mental health, stress, and ultimately it comes out as primary outcome, which could be related to the academic failure, poor social, getting poor self-regulation, mental health, and many such other issues which children may have. I have already mentioned this slide, but I just want to mention the protective factors, which very clearly outlined by UNODC World Drug Report in 2018, which talks about that caregivers' involvement and monitoring is must. Health and neurological development, coping skills, like ma'am talked about, the resilience part of it, emotional regulations, physical safety and social inclusions, safe neighborhood are some of the requirements. And unless and until all these sectors, whether it is education sector, health sector, or maybe the economic sector, if all of these sectors are not getting involved in it, we won't be able to have a positive physical, social, and mental health for our children and adolescents. This is the approach for social determinants of health, where we are talking about multi-sectoral approach by looking at neighborhood and built environment, by looking at good health and healthcare facilities. Hardly we have good de-addiction centers where we would be able to not only detoxify the patients or the cases, but also helping them in terms of developing their own coping mechanisms in terms of dealing with all these factors which we have talked about. Social and community context, education system, like at early age, we should introduce our children to the life skill educations where they are able to say no to such peer pressures, how to deal with those peer pressures. And finally, and very importantly, in economic stability, as I talked about, the political will, the stability of governance, the economic stability also influences substance abuse. And we have seen these examples in a number of places. Finally, just to conclude what I have just said, that extent of substance abuse is higher among young people as compared to the older people. It is high time that we intervene by having multi-sectoral approach, by having systems approach, so that we are able to address the substance abuse very strongly. Sustainable substance, the social determinants of health can be considered as root causes, or as I mentioned, the causes of causes for having ill health, including the substance dependence. So this is high time that we have more educational interventions, research interventions, so that the data around the social determinants of health can be developed for specifically substance use, so that we are able to do a good amount of advocacy, not only at the top level, at the bureaucratic level or political level, but also at the community level, so that community also understands the importance of substance, how to prevent substance abuse and control these issues. Otherwise, the numbers would be ever increasing only. Thank you so much for your active participation.
Thank you very much, sir, for your speech. And you very rightly mentioned that, you know, adolescents, they are experimental in nature, and that's how they land up into problems. And they are trying to find out the solutions to their problem, and when it's not done, and they think that they can escape the reality by going into drug abuse. So there are a lot of social, economic, and other determinants which leads to this problem.
Thank you, Professor Smriti, for moderation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Now I would like to call upon our younger speaker, Dr. Sumiti Arora. She is the rising star in the nursing field, currently working as a faculty in Ahilyabai College of Nursing, Lok Nayak Hospital. She has earlier worked as associate professor at Holy Family College of Nursing, Delhi for around 10 years. She completed her BSc Nursing and MSc Nursing in Psychiatry from College of Nursing, AIIMS, New Delhi. Recently, she was a resource person for a virtual workshop for nurses organized in collaboration with Director General of Health Services and World Health Organization as a part of World No Tobacco Day celebration. She is an educator for substance abuse disorder, conducted several trainings in tobacco and other substance abuse. She is also a diabetic educator. She has been awarded Research Ratna Award for Best Research in Community Mental Health Nursing. She has been coordinator and resource person for various national and international workshops. She has written several chapters in book guided research projects of PG students and is an examiner for more than 5 universities. She has published articles in national and international journal and is an editorial board member for Indian Journal of Psychiatric Nurses. She is also a member of various professional bodies like Trained Nurses Association of India, Indian Society for Psychiatric Nurses, and member of World Research Council. We welcome you, Dr. Sumiti Arora.
Thank you, ma'am. And I'm very grateful to MIT University Gurugram for giving me this opportunity to speak on this important day regarding prevalence, type, and impact of drug abuse. So let me start my topic on drug abuse. So firstly, what is a drug? Drug is basically any substance, solid, liquid, or gas that brings about physical or psychological changes in the body. They act on the brain and can change the way a person thinks, feels, and behaves. Now, the drug abuse, it is a chronic or habitual use of any chemical substance to alter the use state of mind or body for other than medically warranted purposes. WHO has also given a definition regarding abuse, that is, it is a non-medical or unsanctioned pattern of use, irrespective of consequences. Why we are saying irrespective of consequences? Because people are taking, they know that this drug is causing harm, still they are not able to control it. Drug abuse leads to addiction, where it is the compulsive nature of the drug use, despite physical and psychological harm to the user and society, and it includes both the licit and illicit drugs. So we can see this spectrum of psychoactive substance use, It starts from actually the beneficial use that has positive health effects or spiritual or social impact. For example, we are taking a lot of pharmaceutical drugs to improve our health, coffee and tea in moderate amount to increase the alertness. So it starts from the beneficial use, and then next comes the non-problematic use, which is the recreational, casual use that has negligible health or social effects. Then comes the problematic use that begins to have negative consequences for individual, friends, family, or society. This problematic use at the end becomes chronic dependence, use that has become habitual or compulsive despite negative health and social effects. There are different types of drugs and there are different ways to classify these drugs. One of the way to classify these drugs is basically licit drugs and illicit drugs. When we talk about licit drugs, as the name suggests, they are within the law or legal. It includes caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, or prescription drugs. If we talk about illicit drugs are classified as illegal because they poses a great threat to the people and their lives. They are also dangerous to society and even the national and global economy. Examples of illicit drugs are cocaine, heroin, opioids, and drugs. If we talk about illicit trafficking is basically trading, selling, or dealing of these illicit drugs. There is other way to classify these drugs, mainly how they affect the central nervous system. So there are three ways: depressants, stimulants, hallucinogens. Depressants, as the name suggests, they depress the activity of the brain. Stimulants, as the name suggests, it stimulates the activity of the brain. Hallucinogens are basically generator of hallucinations. They affect your perception. So depressant, they slow down the activity of your central nervous system. Examples like alcohol, cannabis, barbiturate, benzodiazepine, solvents, inhalants. GHB, opioids, and more various types of opioids. Then there are stimulants, as the name suggests, they stimulate your central nervous system. They speed up the messages to and from the brain. They make the users more awake, alert. Examples like ephedrine, used in medicine for bronchitis, hay fever, asthma. Caffeine in coffee, tea, or cola drinks. Other stimulants like nicotine in tobacco, amphetamine, cocaine, ecstasy, alcohol in small dosage also acts as stimulants. Hallucinogens affect perception. People who have taken them may believe that they see or hear things that aren't actually there, or they may see things in a distorted manner. They produce hallucination, and most common hallucinations are visual hallucinations or auditory hallucinations. There are various types of hallucinogens like dhatura, ketamine, LSD, magic mushroom, mescaline, PCB, cannabis, ecstasy. All ecstasy have hallucinogen qualities also. And when we talk about cannabis, it acts as hallucinogen as well as depressant. If we see the most common drug used by the adolescent, as we have already seen by Dr. Rajesh Nair, he spoke about this, that tobacco, alcohol, cannabis, cocaine, amphetamine type stimulants, sedatives, inhalants, hallucinogens are the most common drug used by the adolescents. Now the prevalence of drug abuse, this has already been discussed. Let us just have a glance on the global prevalence. That as per the study of NCDAS, it says that 23.9% of the adolescent between the age of 12 to 17 years had tried illicit drugs, and mainly females 4%, and most common were the male 24.5%. Nearly 30% of the teen have seen illegal drug use, and you'll be surprised to see that the most common place it took place was on school property. And there was so many drug overdose deaths, 4,633 deaths among youth aged between 15 to 4 years. In 2019, it was observed that 47% of the young people had used an illegal drug by the time they graduated from high school. 5% of the 8th grader, 20% of the 10th grader, 24% of the 12th graders. This is a fact sheet which says that 6% of the 12th graders use marijuana every day. Up to 30% of the high schoolers use alcohol and binge drinking every day. Up to 3% of the high schoolers smoke cigarette every day. If we talk about the Indian prevalence, this is a study which compares the world, Asian and Indian countries. It says that opioid is the most common drug used by the Indians. As per the data from the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, it says that the mean onset age of the drug is between 12 to 13 years of age. And the most common drug use is the tobacco use. As per the survey of the Gates, it reveals that 28.6% of the adolescents between the age of 15 and above are currently using tobacco in some or the other form. There are different forms of tobacco like smokeless tobacco or smoking form of tobacco. So one or the other form they are using. As per the data from the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment 2019, it says that alcohol is the common psychoactive substance used by Indians. This is already shown by Dr. Rajesh Nair, which says that the prevalence of current alcohol use in children is 1.3%. After alcohol, cannabis and opioid are the next commonly used substances in India. The cannabis is further divided as illegal form of cannabis or legal form of cannabis. Legal form of cannabis is bhang and illegal form of cannabis is ganja and charas. Prevalence of current cannabis use in children 10 to 17 years is 0.9%. And prevalence of opioid use in children is 1.8%. When we talk about sedative and inhalants, they are the only category of substance for which the prevalence of current use among children and adolescents is much higher than adults. You can see from this survey that the prevalence of current use of this inhalant children as compared to adults, 1.17% as compared to adult, which is 0.58%. There are different examples of inhalants like nail polish remover, furniture polish, gasoline, glue, hairspray, lighter fluid, maker fluid, paint thinner, paper correction fluid, rubber cement, spray paint, transmission fluid. Children are taking one or the other form of inhalant and it is most common used in India. If you see the real burden of drug abuse in India, tobacco is the #1 drug. Alcohol is the second most important. Then comes inhalant and cannabis. There is a steep rise in addicts in the last 7 years. From the study, it says that from 774, it rose to 3,707. Another study also indicates that the sedative and inhalant user in children is more than the adults. When we talk about consequences of substance addiction has severe impact not only on the individual but also close to them, people close to them, society as a whole. It has acute consequence, then irreversible consequences and chronic consequences. If we talk about consequence, like there are a lot of risk of accident, violence because they reduce the care for self-preservation in adolescents. So first of all, there is an impact on the family because often these families are subjected to domestic violence, abuse, and financial struggles. It also impacts the institutions, hospitals, like we have overpacked institution because of these patients, like patient admitted to hospital, money spent on their treatment is directly related to substance addiction. Drug abuse impact on our society because it leads to crime. Crime happens to obtain money to purchase their substance of use, and violence normally occur during this situation. Half of all the individuals arrested for a serious crime we have seen, such as like murder, robbery, assault, these people were under the influence of one or the other substance. There is a study which is conducted when we ask children about how they get this money for this habit. It says that maximum people borrow from their family or they take money from their family by lying to them. They even borrow from friends. They steal from home, steal from outside. They even beg, help sell articles stolen by others. They even snatch money from others to buy the drugs. The impact of substance addiction on the society is severe. It leads to crime. Crime happens to obtain money to purchase their substance of use, and violence normally occur during this situation. Half of all the individuals arrested for a serious crime we have seen, such as like murder, robbery, assault, these people were under the influence of one or the other substance. There is a study which is conducted when we ask children about how they get this money for this habit. It says that maximum people borrow from their family or they take money from their family by lying to them. They even borrow from friends. They steal from home, steal from outside. They even snatch money from others to buy the drugs. There is a lot of public impairment happening because of this drug abuse. There have been several accidents that are the fault of driver who are under the influence of the drug at that time of incidents. This not only causes injury, fatalities, but also huge damage cost. The drug abuse is also affecting our environment. It is the result of the outdoor drug cultivation and production. The chemicals that are used to produce these drugs are flammable and hazardous. Many a time, these chemicals are stored improperly, causing fire and explosions at lab. So this is the study which shows the substance abuse harm scores, and we can see that tobacco is again the #1 drug which is causing more harm to our environment. So I will say that I have students should decide that I have big plans for my future. That's why I choose to be drug free. And students should see that put it out before it put you out. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sumati, for your presentation. You have very beautifully explained in very simple terms what are the different types of drugs which the children are using and what is the impact of all these things on the families, nations, how the economic growth can slow down. And it's really very depressing, but I am sure that as healthcare workers, as parents, as teachers, we can find out some solution to this problem. Moving further, it's my privilege to invite Dr. Deepika C. Khaka. She is currently working as Associate Professor at College of Nursing, AIIMS, New Delhi. Ma'am has over 30 years of experience at AIIMS in clinical care, counseling, and teaching pre-service nursing students, postgraduate nurses, and research projects. Ma'am did BSc and MSc Nursing in Mental Health Nursing from College of Nursing, RAK Delhi University, and PhD in Nursing from IGNOU. Ma'am received Best Poster Award at Oxford University, UK in March 2013. She is recipient of Amazonian of America Award for Best Nurse for the year 1999 and Best Nurse Research Award for the year 2006. She has been awarded 2 international fellowships, that is Fogarty Fellowship at New York University, USA in 2002 and Advanced AITRP Fellowship at University of California, Los Angeles, USA in 2007. She has contributed as an advisor to WHO for drafting curriculum of TUT for nurses and HIV care at Bangkok, Thailand. She was in the expert panel of the Clinton Foundation and Indian Nursing Council for HIV/AIDS Initiative for Nurses. She was master trainer for GFATM project of World Bank. She has participated in 2 international research projects of ECOTA with UCLA School of Nursing, USA and University of Emory and 2 national research projects. She has more than 212 citations to her credit. She has written several chapters in ICU Manual and Facilitator's Guide for ART training of nurses and diploma courses at IGNOU. She is a reviewer and editorial board member of 70 national and international journals. Her areas of interest include mental health and HIV/AIDS. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sumati, for those kind words. I would, in the beginning of my talk, I would like to appreciate the organizers of this program for having this very important and pertinent issue which has been ignored on the occasion of International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to speak on this important topic. The topic assigned to me was to speak on the role of healthcare workers against drug abuse and illicit trafficking among children. Already much has been talked about prevalence, so I'll not be talking about this by my previous speakers. This is a study which was done and published in 2013, which revealed that substance using children were recruited in the study, and more than 100 children from more than 100 cities were taken, and there were very alarming results which revealed that the average age of initiation tobacco use is 12.3 years, inhalant is 12.4 years, cannabis is 13.4 years, alcohol use is 13.6 years, and opioid and pharmaceutical drugs, the age of initiation is from 14 to 15 years. There was also a research finding which indicated that more than 80% of peers using substance was commonly seen, and the most important reason of use of drug among children and adolescents was peer pressure. 40%, it was reported in a study that 40% of the adolescents and children were actually using drugs because of the peer pressure. And around 70% of them had never sought any kind of treatment or help. with any healthcare agency, and only 7% of the children had some contact with some kind of NGO. So my talk will be predominantly about the policies against drug use in India. What are the support groups which are available for containing the illicit drug use and trafficking? How healthcare professionals, what is their role, and how they are the warriors against this battle against drug use and illicit trafficking? And also, seeing the current scenario, I'll be also touching about the caregiver support which requires to be given to our children and adolescents during this unprecedented event of having COVID-19 pandemic all across and the lockdown period. This has already been touched by Sumiti, so I will not be talking about this. I'll come to the policies for prevention and protection of child abuse act. There are certain acts which are there, like the Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Act of 1985, which was amended in 2001 and further amended in 2014, which talks about that any possession or trafficking of any kind of illicit drugs is punishable under law. Then we have Prevention of Illicit Traffic in Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substance Act of 1988, which focuses on people who use children for drug trafficking can be booked as abettors or conspirators to the act. Juvenile Justice, that is Care and Protection of Children Act of 2000, is about care and protection of children who are vulnerable to or likely to be inducted into drug abuse or drug trafficking. The National Adolescent Health Policy of 2014 is prevention and treatment of substance use among children in India. National Youth Policy of Ministry of Youth and Sports, Government of India 2014 is on education, skill development, healthy recreational activities and promotion of social values among youth. National Policy for Drug Demand Reduction 2014 is on preventive program on focusing on children both in and outside the education institutions. So these are some of the policies by the Government of India which has been basically rolled in to protect our children against drug abuse and illicit trafficking. This is a Government of India initiative that they have launched a mobile app called Satya Salah in 2017. The Satya Salah is basically a resource kit and a mobile app for adolescents, and it is a part of Rashtriya Kishore Swasthya Karyakram. And the key intervention in this app is that the peer educators like Satya, they act as catalysts for generating demand for adolescent health services and imparting age-appropriate knowledge on the key adolescent healthcare issues to their peer groups. And this mobile app is a link to a cost-effective information platform of toll-free services of Satya Helpline. This is the number which is displayed on the screen. And this helpline will act as an e-counselor for the caller. So this is an initiative by the government to contain this problem and to give the timely help to the adolescent when is it required. These are some of the support groups which are working in this area of against drug abuse and illicit trafficking. There's a Federation of Indian NGOs of Drug Abuse Prevention. Then there is Society for Transformation, Inclusion and Recognition through Sports called STARS, NADA India Foundation, Al-Anon Family for Teens, and many other NGOs are working towards this area to make a difference. These are some of the ministries who are working together cumulatively to contain or take care of this problem. These different ministries who are working in this area are Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Ministry of Health, Women and Child Development, Ministry of Human Resource Development, Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports, Ministry of Labor and Employment, and Department of AIDS Control. Now coming to the actual topic, which is the role of healthcare worker in this area, we know that the role of healthcare workers is pivotal in this area. Because when we talk about substance use, generally people have a very negative attitude towards, a child or adolescent or a person who's having substance use disorder. So as a healthcare provider, our attitude, our role is monumental and phenomenal in handling this issue. Now we know there are different levels of prevention, like primary, secondary and tertiary. The primary level of prevention is the most important level so that we can handle and take care of the problem right before it begins. We educate, we sensitize our children and adolescents against this menace so that they don't indulge into this and they are not a part of this. So thereby, the role of a healthcare provider is very important and very fundamental at the primary level of prevention. So I'll be talking about what are the different roles. Dr. Nair had very intricately explained the different domains and the multi-sectorial social domains which come into play when we talk about drug abuse and illicit trafficking. I will just try to highlight that what are the preventive measures we can do as a healthcare provider to sensitize, educate. And this is not just the healthcare provider, this is basically a holistic approach which has to be dealt by the healthcare provider along with parents and school teachers and the people who are there in the environment of the child to make the child aware, sensitized, and the risk factors, we can address those risk factors and see to it how we can reduce the risk factors. So the preventive aspects include the efforts to reverse or reduce the risk factors. The risk factors are like, as has been highlighted by my previous speakers, like lack of mutual attachment and nurturing given by parents or caregivers, ineffective parenting, chaotic home environment, lack of significant relationship with caring adult, and caregiver who himself abuses substances and suffers from mental illness or engages in any criminal behavior. So these are some of the risk factors, and as a healthcare provider, it is our duty to give health education to the parents, to the families, that how they can make the environment of their children conducive, how they can, because we know that the family is the basic unit of society. As Dr. Banerjee was also mentioning in the opening remarks, that what difference we can make is that we can take care of the people in the family, the people around us, and they can be very important factors which can, help us to contain this problem which we have at hand. So we have to educate, not only the healthcare workers should be sensitized, we should also educate the teachers, the parents who come in contact with the children as to how to see to it that the environment in which they live, they go is conducive for their mental health. Then the preventive aspects, continuing with the family programs, is that we should enhance family bonding, relationships, and improve parenting skills. We can do this by health education, by informing the parents, by sensitizing the parents regarding their important role in building up the child's mental health, and be having a conducive environment for the child to thrive. Then we have family bonding. We know is the bedrock of relationships between parents and children. So that information requires to be given to the parents, that their time is very important for building up a stable child. Parental monitoring and supervision are critical for substance use prevention, and moderate and consistent discipline is essential. So this kind of education or sensitization requires to be told to the parents that they have to see to it that their parenting styles are appropriate and conducive for raising a very emotionally stable child who does not indulge or get carried away by peer pressure for abusing drugs. Then coming to preventive aspects in relation to school, as I had mentioned, that we have to also educate and sensitize the school teachers regarding how to pick up a child who can be a high risk, and needful intervention is given so that the child does not go to the secondary level, that is the level of indulging into the behavior of substance use, or we require him to re-addict. So the school program should have the different levels of schooling. Like in preschool, we can intervene early and address the risk factors, like if we see the child is aggressive, has poor social skills, or is having some scholastic difficulties. In elementary school children, we can intervene and address the risk factors such as dropout, academic failure, or aggression. We have to encourage and see to it that we focus on self-control, emotional awareness, academic support, and especially in reading. So this is the support which we can give, and by educating the teachers as to how to take care of children who have these kind of problems. Then coming to middle and high school, as my previous speakers have spoken, that this is the time in which the use of or abuse of these drugs increases. What we can do and educate the teachers is about how to improve the following skills, that is study habits and academic support, peer relationships, self-efficacy and assertiveness, drug resistance skills against experimentation, and strengthening of personal commitments against drug use. So we have to teach the adolescents at this point of time refusal skills, that how to say no. without getting into the trap of peer pressure. Community programs can be like prevention of programs should address all kind of drug abuse, like legal, illicit, or inappropriate use of legally obtained substances like inhalants. So community awareness needs to be generated, and sensitization needs to be done to the community regarding the ill effects of these drugs and how these drugs can be very detrimental to the life of an individual. And as we had discussed by the previous speakers, that it does not just affect the individual, the effect is on the family and society at large. Coming to the secondary level of prevention, that is the treatment level, in case we have a child or adolescent who has a problem of substance use, the treatment aspects includes, we have to first detoxify the child if he comes to a healthcare agency for de-addiction, then we have to do the needful intervention, and the rehabilitation requires to be given to the child or the adolescent. Now, the core components which are in the treatment aspect include, you have to maximize motivation for abstinence, you have to do aggressive counseling for the patient, for the child or the adolescent. Motivational enhancement counseling is done. You have to restructure their lives, how they have to restructure their life without the use of alcohol and drugs. And we have to see to it that what we can do to minimize relapse. We have to see the triggers for relapse and take care of it and teach the child or the adolescent how to not go for a relapse, effective coping strategies. These are some of the psychological interventions which are given if the child or the adolescent has come for addiction, like brief intervention, motivational enhancement therapy, relapse prevention counseling, group therapy, then social skill training like refusal skills, problem solving skills, relaxation training, anger management, and cognitive restructuring. So these are some of the interventions which are given at the secondary level, that is the treatment, early treatment and diagnosis. Relapse prevention includes that you identify what are the risk factors which are for relapse, the triggering factors for relapse, and how we can take care of that. We help to identify modes of coping, that if there is craving, how can they cope and handle craving, remind about the appropriate attitude which is required, rebuild relationships, and should have supportive family therapy. So these are the things which are done in relapse prevention for an adolescent or a teenager who's having problem of substance use. Now coming to a very important area which is we are currently facing, and of COVID-19 pandemic. This is a pandemic which has affected each and every one of the people living not only in India but all over the world. And there are certain mental health concerns which children and adolescents are having during this period, because we know schools have been closed from March and children are all at home, children and adolescents, and they're having online classes, and this is the new normal. We were not used to this kind of education, this kind of environment, and they have to be inside for safety reasons because of the lockdown. So there are certain pressing mental health concerns which everyone is facing, including children and adolescents. So with this current pandemic, which has touched each and everyone on the planet, the existing mental health illnesses among children and adolescents can be increased because of this pandemic, because there is no interaction. They're only locked up in the family, at homes, because going out can be dangerous and can be detrimental and can expose them to the virus. So school closures, and we know that because of school closures, mostly the children and adolescents are now internet use. They are only sitting on the mobile phones or on the desktops, and the internet use during this period of lockdown is 30 times increased because of there is no activity from children, cannot go out and play. So because of this, there is also increase in suicide and substance use among adolescents, and we know special care requires to be seen. They have to be monitored what kind of internet or cyber networking these people are doing related to the consequences, because they're staying at home. Now, what caregivers support we, as caregivers, parents can do during this lockdown period is, we know this is stressful time for the child and the adolescent. They're not used to this kind of living. This is the new normal. So we have to recognize the specific signs of psychological distress. That is the child or adolescent having difficulty eating and sleeping? Is he sad, withdrawn, or fearful? Is the child or adolescent complaining of nightmares, or there is any decrease in trust in the routine work? So what we can do as caregivers and parents, and also tell others, is to listen, comfort, and reassure the child. This is some of the 5 golden rules on how to see to it that children are safe online. It is okay that you have to tell and teach the children that you have to be very sure when you are online that you are safe. So safety is very important. It is okay to block someone whom you are not comfortable communicating with. Do not accept friend requests from strangers. And if the email is, you're getting an email which looks suspicious, delete it or mark it as junk. Passwords should not be made social. And you have to remember to log out while you are using a public computer. So these are some of the safety guidelines which you have to tell our children and adolescents when they are logging on or when they are connected to the internet. Now, since children are mostly at home, it has been reported that there are a lot of frustration, they're angry, they're anxious. So as parents and as healthcare providers, you have to tell the parents to keep your child busy. You have to allow them to do some household chores, make them party to the things which you do at home, include them in that, give them responsibility. And once you give them a responsibility of doing their household chore, you should see to it that they feel responsible in completing whatever task has been given to them. Help them acquire new skills and also encourage and cultivate new hobbies in the children. So that is the way we can effectively manage children and adolescents during this lockdown period at home. These are some of the pictures of children doing some household chores, engaging in hobbies and trying to effectively, positively using their time rather than being all the time glued to the internet. So to speak accurately about the risk of COVID-19 based on scientific data, so the information you give to a child should be reliable, like from CDC or WHO or Ministry of Health and Family Welfare or ICMR. Don't repeat or share unconfirmed rumors and avoid any hyperbolic language designed to generate just fear and panic. Recommendations regarding this pertinent problem of drug abuse and illicit trafficking is that awareness is very important. We need to create awareness not only among the healthcare providers, but among parents, teachers, and people who are handling children. Like training manpower and capacity building can be enhanced through short-term trainings, long-term training, and skill-based workshops. Cost-effective and culturally relevant interventions required to be developed separately for children. So they should be children-friendly in school, children at home, and children on the streets. Then child welfare system needs to be strengthened, especially for homeless children, children with history of abuse in the family. This should be like they should have effective safe space for children. And effective counseling services need to reduce the risk of substance use and approach should be sensitive. So these are some of the recommendations which can be done to contain and curtail this problem which we have at hand. This was a study which was published in Lancet, which shows that the average age of initiation to alcohol in India, which was earlier 19 years, it reported in 1986, is now come down to 14 years in 2006. I would like to wrap up by saying that drug use and illicit trafficking has received attention recently, though it is a pressing issue and need of the hour. We need to address this problem. Collaborative and multi-facet approach with equal focus on prevention as well as treatment efforts requires to be done. It is an emerging problem which needs to be urgently addressed. We know children and adolescents are the future of our country, and on their shoulders only we can build a strong nation. So we have to take care of it and see to it that they are having a drug-free environment in which they can grow, thrive, and be an asset to our community and our country at large. Better knowledge for better care. We know knowledge is empowerment. If we have better knowledge, we have better attitude, and we can make a difference in a long way in the lives of our children and adolescents who are around us. These are my references. I would like to acknowledge the contribution of Jason Joseph, a PhD scholar, faculty at PGI Rohtak, for his contribution towards this presentation. I'd like to end up by saying that a child's life is like a piece of paper on which every person leaves a mark. So all of us can make a difference. You cannot say that only people who work in pediatrics, children around us, children in our families, all of us can make a difference for good if we want in the life of a child, and that can go a long way in building a healthy, happy, drug-free child. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your session. And indeed, it's very important that we listen to our children, what they are saying, and we should be always available to them when they want to talk to us. And now, as you see that the more and more we are moving forward towards nuclear families, we don't have much of the relatives around us like nani, dadis, and buas earlier when we used to talk to them. So it's very important that we keep an eye on the children and we listen to them what they are talking to us and be attentive. Okay, so with that, this was the last session of our day and we are coming to the end. So coming to as now the vote of thanks was supposed to be given by Dr. Rawat, but since he has not joined, so I will do that duty. So on behalf of PNNFI and ACON, Amity University, Haryana, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the panelists and delegates who participated in this knowledge sharing event. A very sincere gratitude to our Pro Vice Chancellor ma'am for sparing her valuable time to be with us. AUH is gaining newer heights day by day under ma'am's leadership. And ma'am is a crusader of positivity and really believes in youth empowerment. This program would not have been possible without the constant support and encouragement from the President and Secretary of PNNFI. Though Rawat sir is not here, but he was constantly giving me the moral support to conduct this event. Next, I would like to thank our HOI, Dr. Tamil Selvi Madam, for being our mentor and always guiding us in the right direction. My sincere thanks to Dr. Rajesh Nair, Dr. Deepika Sikaka ma'am, Dr. Sumiti Arora, for accepting our request and being with us today. Kudos to the lovely participants who registered and actively listened to all the sessions and participated in various discussions on the chat box.
And Dr. Pity Kaul. Dr. Pity Kaul.
Yes, ma'am. Of course. When I said that the program would not have been possible without the constant support from the President and the Secretary of PNNFI, and Dr. Pity Kaul was constantly encouraging me and motivating me to conduct this event successfully. Lastly, my humble gratitude to Ms. Shweta, Mr. Rajkumar, and many more background workers who worked silently to make this event a successful one. Goodbye and a very happy weekend to all of you.